We're looking at Mark chapter 10, verse 32 to 45. They were on their way up to Jerusalem, with Jesus leading the way, and the disciples were astonished, while those who followed were afraid. Again he took the 12 aside and told them what was going to happen to him. "We are going up to Jerusalem," he said, "and the Son of Man will be betrayed to the chief priests and teachers of the law. They will condemn him to death and will hand him over to the Gentiles, who will mock him and spit on him, flog him and kill him. 3 days later he will rise." Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him. "Teacher," they said, "we want you to do for us whatever we ask." "What do you want me to do for you?" he asked. They replied, "Let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory." "You don't know what you're asking," Jesus said. "Can you drink the cup I drink or be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with?" "We can," they answered. Jesus said to them, "You will drink the cup I drink and be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with. But to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared." When the 10 heard about this, they became indignant with James and John. Jesus called them together and said, "You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great amongst you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." I just really like that last part. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servants. And it's really a sense of, you see how the world does it. You see how this thing is at play around you. And once again, Jesus really speaking into the idea that his kingdom, the kingdom of heaven, is very different to what is happening on earth around us. And it really goes into the idea that we are living in a broken kingdom. We're living in a broken world and society where not only are physical things warped, the planet is dying slowly. Species are being extincted out, species are being wiped out, all that kind of thing. But there's a sense of just brokenness of kind of government, the way we do things, principles, ideologies, the way people tend to become. And Jesus is kind of stopping it and just kind of pushing pause for a second and saying, "Not so with you. You've heard that it was done, you've seen that it was done, you know that this is how the Gentiles do it. I want you to do something different." And I think that has been a strong call to the kingdom and to the church for so long now, that by our actions people will see something different, that for Christ following people there is this idea of not so with you. You're not the same DNA, you're not wired to do things like other people do them. You are called to a higher life, you're called to a greater life, you're called to live out the example of Jesus that was lived around us. And so really that's something we've got to think about as a Christian, as a Christ follower. Does my life look radically different to the lives of those around me? It links to that whole thing of, are we known for what we believe in? In John, Jesus says, "You will be known by the love you have for each other." And yet so often we see Christians being known for things that they're against. We see Christians fighting with each other, especially of late. There's just been so much stuff on Facebook and Twitter about this preacher doing this and that pastor doing that, and people taking each other down, and it must look so ridiculous from the outside. And Jesus calls us to be like Jesus, to be like him, to live a life worthy of God. There was a conference recently called Act Like Men, and it really goes down to what you think a man acts like, and people's definitions of men. And that is one of the things that around the internet has been kind of going crazy over the last few days. But imagine if that was act like Jesus, because that is the call of the Bible. The call of the Bible is Paul saying, "Follow me as I follow Christ." Anyone who wants to follow him must walk as Jesus did, 1 John 2 verse 6. And so imagine if we kind of walk like Jesus. Imagine if we modeled our lives on him instead of the latest preacher or speaker or the latest book or whatever it is. Those things can be good and they can be helpful and they can point us towards Jesus and towards living life better. But if the ultimate goal is not resembling Jesus, resembling love, being filled with the fruits of the Spirit, then ultimately we're wasting our time. And that is what Jesus calls us to. He says, anyone who wants to be first must be the slave of all. Whoever wants to become great amongst you must be your servant. And it's kind of taking the wants to be great and just stomping on that, just throwing that aside. If you be a servant, you can't want to be great at the same time. The two don't really work together. And so if you are wanting to really truly follow me, if you're wanting to do a great thing, then serve others. And always this idea happens that if you're in a community and everyone is serving others, then everyone is being served. And so we've got to start. We've got to start living like Jesus. We've got to start being known more for the things that Jesus stood for the things of the kingdom of heaven that look upside down to the world. And really, we've got to start serving each other. We've got to start serving the world. That is maybe one of the strongest forms of evangelism. Just start serving people like Jesus did. Start loving people like Jesus did, to the extent that he loved them, which is a very scary extent, as today's passage shows. All the best.